What is going down, faithful? We are back for an NFC Championship edition of State of the Franchise. Let's get this thing going, Jason. Let's hop right in and get this thing started. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now. Mr. Aponte, how are we vibing today? What is the vibe that you're feeling right about now after cooking those Cowboys?
I'm concerned, Brad, and I hope this is a safe space where I can share my concerns, right? And people won't judge me for my concerns. I'm concerned, Brad. All week, there were a lot of Cowboys fans who had a lot of things to say about what was going to happen, and I do we put them on the back of milk cartons? Do we put up, missing posters? Because I'm concerned. How do we do wellness checks on Cowboys fans? How do we figure out how they're doing? Because I am truly concerned. I'm a person who deeply cares about other humans.
We're pro mental health here. Like,
right.
We got to make sure, it's 2023. The mentals be acting up sometimes. Right. And so check on your neighborly Cowboys fans because they're out here destroying TVs. They're destroying their own property. Like they're going through it right now. They went as far as wishing bodily harm on the San Francisco 49ers players, wishing for mental collapses. It's tough out here for the Cowboys fans right now.
I just hope they're okay. I just want to know where they are because my biggest thing is I don't duck the smoke. If the 49ers lost that game, I have to do all of these shows this entire week. Yeah. The idea, the audacity that you get to pop shit about an inferior team and tell us how bad they were going to beat the 49ers and then absolutely disappear only enforces and reinforces the stereotype of Cowboy fans being all talk, of Cowboy fans being completely delusional, of Cowboy fans being exactly what we think they are, which is SAWFT, soft. So I'm just concerned. I just hope they're okay. How do we send out some wellness checks? Do we have the police roam around in Arlington and in Dallas to make sure they're good, knock on doors, make sure that they aren't just sitting in their room crying? My question was always pop that shit because I'm pro obnoxious person, but make sure that you come back when it doesn't happen your way. And you know what? My t-shirt is the last little dig that I have against Cowboy fans because they're irrelevant as usual and their season's over as usual.
I mean, I haven't seen one Cowboy fan pop up and show their face since that game has ended. They were loud and proud heading into that matchup at Levi's Stadium. They really felt like they were them boys and they were going to come in to our turf and take down the San Francisco 49ers. But we saw what happened and it was ugly. And I think it couldn't have ended any better. And maybe let's start with the end and how that game ended with that play that how would you describe the last play of the game for the Dallas Cowboys? Is there a better way to encapsulate the Dallas Cowboy experience, their fan base, and everything that comes along with it than that last play of that game?
That felt like the annexation of Puerto Rico from Little Giants, except it didn't work. Except it didn't work at all, right?
Great reference.
It's just Ezekiel Elliott, get under center. Everybody else move to the right, move to the left.
Center Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, he's about 2 cheeseburgers away from center. So
my goodness, man, Ezekiel Elliott, rough go of it, my friend. I mean, they just hung you out to dry. That was a play in which they practiced all week. Like, okay, our backs are against the wall. We got to have it. This is what we're going to run. This is the play. That's what they came up with. At least with the quarterback draw, you can say that's a bit of a brain fart on Dak Prescott and them not knowing the rules of football, handing the football to an official. That was something that was planned. And they had, there's that sheet, the play sheet, and there's a sheet that's says, gotta have it.
There's a name for the play. Yeah, it's circled.
That's the one. And they said, this is it. Let's go. And, I feel bad for Turpin. He was put in a horrible spot. Jimmy Ward said,
terrible spot.
Jimmy Ward said, get that shit out of here. But that game should have ended 2 different times on the same drive. Or was it the drive before that Drake Greenlaw dropped the pick that would have just ended the game? And then Eric
Armstead and the Eric Armstead safety as well.
Yeah. Dallas Cowboys are a mess, man. I don't know why everybody was so worried about this game or why. That's why, if you noticed, I was popping that shit regularly. I know what my team can do. And I was not convinced after they beat a terrible Tampa Bay Bucs team. So, yeah, I knew what my boys were going to do. Now, you are going to find, and we'll talk about it in a bit, you're going to find I have a much different tone for this game because I know it's in front of the 49ers as opposed to what was in front of them on Sunday.
Absolutely. And I think that it's a tale of two sides for the Dallas Cowboys. Watching the tape back, I have to give them a little bit of credit defensively.
Brad, check your mic real quick. Just check your mic.
Check.
It just sounds a little different, a little bit more weird. That's it.
Can you hear me? We good?
Yes, perfect.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for checking. Sometimes it goes off on me. But I think it was a tale of two sides of the football. I think defensively, the Dallas Cowboys put up a really good plan against the San Francisco 49ers. And, they made it kind of difficult in the first half, but the San Francisco 49ers were able to get back on track in the second half, and things really started to roll, especially into the fourth quarter. But Dak Prescott, Skip Bayless said right after the wild card round that Dak Prescott was going to outperform Brock Purdy. But alas, it was Mr. Irrelevant who actually, all things considered, outperformed the $160 million quarterback. So, what's your takeaway from, the two quarterbacks and the way they performed? What do you think's going on there?
First of all, Dallas's defense deserves a ton of credit. If you would have told them before the game that they were going to hold this offense to 19 points, I think they would take that all day, man. I think they would. I think what they presented up front, how fast they were, presented problems for the offensive line. You could see it was evident. Brock Purdy played a better game over Dak Prescott by simply doing what Dak Prescott couldn't, which was play a clean game. When you look at the 2 interceptions that were thrown, they literally either took points off the board for Dallas or put points on the board for San Francisco. You have an interception from Diamondo Lenore on their plus side. That's 3 points. You have an interception in your red zone that was either 3 or 7 points. Some could argue that's a 10-point swing right there. There was no way that you were going to win this game by losing the turnover battle. And for as much as Brock Purdy was pressured, I believe he was credited for 15 direct pressures, by the defense in different ways. That meant defensive line, linebackers. That meant secondary members who came on blitz. He only had 2 sacks. And, for everything that was done in this game, for the way that Dallas bottled up the run early on, I think they had a great plan. Shout out to them and Dan Quinn. I think they did an amazing job. And I think that the 49ers physicality eventually wore them down. And that's another testament to the fact that Dallas was trying to tell you all week, this is who we are, but you're not like that. You can sustain it for 45 minutes. You can't do it for 60. You cannot do it for 60. So I do think that Brock Purdy outplayed Dak Prescott by simply not turning the ball over. The numbers in terms of passing yards and running yards are strikingly similar. They're almost the same amount. It was completely even in that way. But one quarterback had to make a play in this game. And Brock Purdy was the guy who did, and that's the George Kittle play. That's the game that that's the play that swung the game, won the game, right? Okay. If you look back, when I watch Dak Prescott, he has the long throw to CeeDee Lamb. If he lays that out a little bit further out in the right way, CeeDee Lamb's still running, okay? So that's a play you need to have, right? You need to have that play. Then there's the Michael Gallup play in which Mooney Ward breaks that up. If you put that on the right shoulder with Michael Gallup, that's at least a long completion that gets you rolling, and it ends up as an incompletion. One guy needed to make a play. One guy didn't. Both were under heavy fire against great defenses, but one guy played better than the other, and that was Brock Purdy over Dak Prescott. And that's just something that if you're looking back at this game, Dallas Cowboy fans, if you're looking to point the blame at anything, and don't say it's Kellen Moore's last play, it was Dak Prescott in his play. I'm sorry. I understand Tony Pollard being out of this game was a huge thing. He's been an incredible weapon. He was great. Felt like that was a big moment in this game as well, too. Hope he recovers well. I do not want to lap up that injury. I think it's terrible. Again, pro player. Right. But Dak Prescott's the reason this team lost this game. It's just that, and that's not even an opinion.
No, I think you explained it perfectly. You gave factual information. You gave examples of all the moments where Dak failed to step up, and you would expect a quarterback who, again, we can point to the contract all we want to, but he's got a lot of experience in this league. He started a lot of seasons for the Dallas Cowboys. You would expect in a big time game, a big time player like Dak Prescott to step up and do what he needed to do, and it was the rookie on the other side that really just outplayed him. Played a more like it wasn't like a ton of flashy plays from Brock Purdy like we've seen in the past, but again, Brock being consistent, Brock having to get rid of the football when he has to, like scrambling to the left, scrambling to the right, doing what he had to do under the circumstances, and having to create sometimes. But I think overall, the fact that Brock Purdy, even in these moments with a defense that, like, I'll say this. We've had our fun with Micah Parsons this week for sure.
He was great.
But you know, I can only speak for the 17, 18 defenses that I've watched against the 49ers offense this year. Micah Parsons was the best defensive player that I've seen on tape out of anyone. And we played against Max Crosby this year. We played against some good defenders. Even Chris Jones. Chris Jones is a phenomenal defensive player, defensive tackle. But Micah Parsons is just different. Like his ability with size, speed, strength, the way he can play on the line of scrimmage, off ball, he was a problem for the San Francisco 49ers offense, and he muddied some things up a lot, more often than not. And Brock had to work around that. And the fact that the rookie could do that, and under those circumstances, and again, you mentioned it too, they had a really good plan for the defense against the 49ers in that first half. So all things considered, do you think that because of and we're going to just kind of pop back and forth, but do you think that type of performance from the Cowboys defense will actually aid Brock and maybe the offense as a whole as they get prepared to face a very stout Philadelphia Eagles defense as well?
I walked away much more encouraged with this win than any, obviously, because it's in the biggest game, but it's just the fashion. And this is what it's going to be like in Philly. It's going to be a knockdown, drag them out, heavyweight, punch for punch game. Like, this is going to be a game where points are the premium, are at a premium, and it's going to come down to who can make a play, who is going to have the ball last, probably, right? And that's what this kind of felt like for a long time during this game. I've been saying it over and over. I wanted to see adversity from Brock Purdy, and people, make their jokes or whatever about me, like whatever.
We got to that one day.
Yeah, but my thing is this is what you want to see. The NFL isn't typically you winning 35-7. It's not you typically coming back in a shootout winning 38-35. Especially in the playoffs, it's going to look a lot like this game, especially as the competition rises. The kid didn't flinch, didn't turn the ball over. I wrote an article today about what Kyle Shanahan said about Brock Purdy in OTAs, and how Kyle Shanahan still has confidence in him in a way that I don't think I've seen with any quarterback in playoff games or at all as a 49er, right? So when you point back at the end of the first half, you would think, okay, you've got to get in the field goal range. How are you going to do this? You're going to run the ball. No, throw. Like, they threw the ball a bunch, right? And Brock got him in. Now, cool. The last play, he held the ball a little too long, had us a little nervous, left 1 second, fine. It gets executed. Obviously, Kyle, that was scary. I was yelling at the TV, like, throw it away, kid. But obviously, that was to keep the Cowboys from having a play, having a kickoff. Okay, that's smart. But then you point to the last drive of the game, in which the 49ers threw the ball 2 times, but they ran the ball a bunch to try and kill the clock. But the first play out of that, while you know that the Cowboys are trying to get a stop and use your timeouts and all those, was a pass to George Kittle. That was a first down. Like, again, not only do you have the confidence to say, I know you're going to convert this, Brock Purdy, I know you're not going to put the ball in harm's way. So there is something to be said about Kyle Shanahan and the way that he trusts him, because, look, you're not going to like this. I don't care. And it's another fact. If that was Jimmy Garoppolo, they would have ran the ball 35 times, even if they got stuffed like every single time. Like, they weren't going to throw the ball at one time that entire time. I'm sorry. It's just the facts at this point. So it's a little bit different. He trusts him. He talked about his poise. I think those 2 examples, in which are what I put in my article too, surrounding his quote about why Brock Purdy stuck around and they cut a guaranteed contract with Nate Sudfeld, was about that, about how he always has a grasp and he knows what to do and he never really looks like he's lost. So yes, 100%, man. Like, I am way more encouraged in this performance than I would if Purdy went out there and was throwing 4 touchdowns to wide open receivers and they were just blowing out the Cowboys. That's not going to be typical. That is not how this Eagles game is going to go. The Eagles have no holes. This is how it's going to be. It's going to be a knockdown, drag 'em out game. I am much more encouraged with that sort of performance where he didn't throw a touchdown and they scored a touchdown on the ground than I am if he was throwing 4 touchdowns to guys running wide open with no coverage and the defense was terrible. That's not how this game's going to go. So it's good that they're battle tested.
Absolutely, and well said. Brian dropped a 20-piece super chat on us. Appreciate you, brother. He says, national media is giving us no chance against Philly, and I'm loving it. Our team responds to being the underdog. Interesting stat. Brock has more playoff wins than Hurts, yet BCB, the one who isn't ready for the big stage. What is your take on that comment from Brian?
I actually love the fact that they're underdogs at this point. Kyle Shanahan even spoke about the fact that when they're favorite, he kind of feels that they're a bit relaxed. Like they're not that they're not focused, that they're just a bit relaxed. And the underdog thing is great because now you can just use that. And, you hear everybody talking about this sizable gap between Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy. And I don't think anybody can argue. I don't think anybody can argue that, talent-wise, there isn't a sizable gap because there absolutely is.
Jalen Hurts has been playing at an MVP level all season.
My point is going to be this. When you look at what both of those guys are asked to do, Jalen Hurts was literally called Michael Jordan by Nick Sirianni. What does that mean? Like, that's not a role player, right? Brock Purdy's not asked to be Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or any of those guys. He needs to distribute to his playmakers and the guys who can
He's more of
plays.
A Steve Nash.
He's a point guard, right? And that's what what a quarterback is asked to do in this offense. So when you're asked, obviously the talent gap is different. Jalen Hurts has been incredible. But what Jalen Hurts is asked to do is literally put this offense on his shoulders at time. I don't think Brock Purdy has been ever asked to do that, especially in this game. So when the national media starts to drum up this argument, the 49ers hear this. I love the underdog sentiment because I do think that the 49ers do play better football when it's them against the world and it's not everybody expects them to win. And I don't think many people are giving them a chance. So I love this narrative. And then when you talk about the numbers between Hurts and Brock during this entire time, they're strikingly similar. Obviously, Jalen Hurts has, much more on the ground. But for me, again, it all goes back to who's the play caller, who's the playmakers, what is he asked to do. You still have to feel comfortable with Brock Purdy in this situation because it's not like Kyle Shanahan's just going to drop him back 40 times and say, win this game with your arm and make sure you outthrow them. That's not the way to win this game. And there's definitely examples of how to beat the Eagles. That's certainly not one of them.
Yeah, and it's funny too. Kind of, if we go back to Philadelphia's run to the Super Bowl, like what was their big rallying cry? They were the underdogs. They even had the masks. Like they would put the dog mask on as part of their identity in that Super Bowl run. It was it was Carson Wentz, obviously, who was playing at a really high level, and then he got hurt. Right, he tore his ACL right at the end of the year, and it's Nick Foles now. It's a cast of characters, out there, and no one really gave the Philadelphia Eagles much of a shot. And guess what? They went up against the Titan that is the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and they took them down. So I agree. I think this narrative that the 49ers are the underdog just plays into their hand. Like, we understand what it is. I would say going into Seattle, even going into the Cowboys, I think you would probably say that the 49ers were definitely favored to win those games. Yes. It was the opposite. They were not the underdogs in that game. Mm-hmm. This game, if you're speaking nationally outside the 49ers fan base, even us in the 49ers fan base, we are clearly aware how good the Eagles are. Like, the Eagles are good. They're probably the most complete team in the NFL, not named the San Francisco 49ers. And they have talent and an MVP caliber quarterback. They're just stacked. O-line, D-line, you name it. They've got dogs at every position. So I can understand the narrative. I can understand the national talking points that the San Francisco 49ers are the underdogs heading into this game. But that feeds right into what the San Francisco 49ers want to do. And, the Philadelphia Eagles aren't perfect, right? I think we've heard a lot about this week how, they're really good at getting after the quarterback, but you kind of got to be in pure drop back situations for that to occur. And if there's anything about the San Francisco 49ers, what are they going to do? they're going to gash it in between the tackles, outside the tackles, and they're going to hit you with play action boots. And that makes it a lot more difficult to really get after them and put your, just go and get after the quarterback. So I agree. I think this is fitting in very well. The stat about, who's more ready for the playoffs, I'll be honest. Hurts has more experience in this league. So that's why I will give it to him. Brock is still in his rookie season, hasn't been a full year, and you can still see some of those growing maturity things in his game. And so I would give it to Hurts, but that doesn't mean Brock Purdy is just, some pumpkin, right? I think Brock Purdy is going to be able to come out and play well in this matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree too. And again, it all boils down to what he's asked to do, how he's performed so far. I do think that there are obviously weaknesses and ways to beat Philly. When everybody's worried about right now is Jalen Hurts and his legs. And there was a stat that was put out there, I believe, from somebody who works for PFF about how much Jalen Hurts struggles against zone, particularly cover 3. And I wouldn't suspect the 49ers to be in straight man-to-man, because what do we know about man-to-man, Brad? If you have defensive backs with their backs turned and everything, and you do not keep contained and you open up a rushing lane, well, now you're just giving up 10-12, right? I don't think that's going to – so people are asking who's going to spy. I don't think there's going to be a spy. I think what you're going to ask is your front four to get there. Maybe you send one more. You ask Jalen Hurts to decipher what's in front of him. And while you're in zone, you have spies in almost every level, right? So, again, Jalen Hurts is going to get certain yards on the ground, right? I think what you need to stay away from are the back-breaking ones on third down, the ones that are like 3rd and 7, and he can get 8, things like that. You can't allow him to gash you for 20 and 30 at a clip. That's probably what's going to happen more to more with man-to-man, especially with Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown and how those guys can get down the field. But when you look at his numbers, he's the worst remaining quarterback against cover 3. The 49ers apparently run cover 3 38% of the time, which is one of the highest in the league. And I suspect that that's what you're going to see. So there's a way for you to not only keep guys in zone and stay at home with Jalen Hurts, but you're also giving help to Diamador Lenore if he's lined up against A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith, because Mooney Ward's on the other side, right? Like, and you can feel way better about that matchup. If it's strictly man-to-man, I don't think the 49ers will be successful doing that for the obvious reasons of the wide receivers being too talented. And you can't turn your back to Jalen Hurts, because if you can't get home with 4, if you do blitz and you get a wide open lane, as we saw Dak Prescott kind of take on one of them where it was like 12, 13 yards, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt, and then you're going to get yourself out of a game. So for me, I think the 49ers have a good plan to slow down the traditional running game. Obviously, you'll see a ton of zone read, and that'll put pressure on the defensive ends to make a choice on who has the ball, and that's the whole point of the read option. But if you're talking about straight handoffs, I'm not as worried when it comes to that. It's all the other things that Jalen Hurts can do by extending the play, getting out of the pocket, and making throws downfield, and also picking it up with his legs. I just don't suspect that the 49ers will be a man-to-man, just because it's not conducive to their weapons, to slowing down their weapons and slowing down Jalen Hurts. So I would suspect that you see a little bit more of cover 3.
That's a good point. That's why we got Jason around here, because you speak so well about coverages on defense and all that type of stuff. Like, you really can, like, I'm admittedly a trench guy, and like, this is why this works. Like, you're really good at being able to break down coverages and why the ins and outs of things may or may not work. And I think that's a fantastic point, because if you can identify something like that, and we know D'Amico Ryans, he's a scheme guy. Like, we talk about him as a leader, like a leader and those types of things. But what makes his defensive scheme so special is that he will mold his defense to whatever the offense is lacking at, right? So he'll be able to try to attack certain things. So if you're being able to identify that point, I would imagine that D'Amico has identified that as well.
Breaking news, Brad. D'Amico Ryans is much smarter than I am at football.
Hey, don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short.
I couldn't be a defensive coordinator. That's too much pressure, man. They'd be like, you have to get back in game plan. Dude, it's been 4 straight days. Can I just lay down?
You're like, wait, I have to stay in the office for 14 hours a day.
I want to go home, man. I want to go home.
So, but I think that's a great transition to talk about the 49ers defense versus that offense because, yeah, we talked about Dak and, Dak versus Purdy and all that type of stuff, but Fred Warner balling. We had Diamador Lenore get an interception. We had Jimmy Ward balling. We had Dre Greenlaw balling. Like, just talk about that defensive performance against the Cowboys.
I mean, Fred Warner's an alien. I mean, when you mug over the A gap and you're carrying us, not just the receiver up the seam, CD Lamb up the seam. That's alien shit right there, man. Like that's literally things that
CD Lamb's one of the most athletically gifted freaks in this league.
And again, we were talking about how, again, you're not going to stop CD Lamb. It doesn't matter where he lines up. And that's just credit to the player. He is good. He is very good. And he did his thing. And again, kind of going back to my point about Dak Prescott and the reason that it's his fault that this team lost. That play in which, again, Warner's mugged over the A gap and he breaks back and he carries him up the seam. If Dak puts that ball a little bit farther ahead, Fred Warner should not be able to run with CeeDee Lamb. So he throws it in a place where Fred can get back to it. Again, I'm not taking away from Fred's coverage, but Dak didn't play a good game in this game. But back to Fred Warner, man. That's probably – it's between that divisional game and the divisional game against the Green Bay Packers that are the two best Fred Warner performances I've ever seen. And if you go back to that Green Bay game, you remember the Packers scored. They were on their way to scoring again, and Fred Warner punches out the ball from Mercedes Lewis and then just played like a madman out of his mind, just was tackling everything. And then you look at this game, showing blitz, carrying, sometimes blitzing, just everywhere on the field. It's always like I say, the best linebackers in football, when the pow happens, they're always on the bottom. And it felt like Fred was always on the bottom of everything, right? You couldn't attack him in the pass game. He was literally flying around on the ball. This was a masterclass from Fred Warner. I just think that we're lucky, man. We almost forget. We almost just are like, yeah, whatever. That's just Fred. And especially in a game, where Nick Bosa, that's just Fred. It's just Fred. Like that's just Fred. Like whatever. No, like other people watch Fred Warner and they're in awe, and we're kind of just still sitting here like, that's just Fred. That's just Fred. That's just Fred.
That's just the best linebacker in the NFL. It's just the prototype. Right. What's a big deal? And we're like, Greenlaw. Look at what Greenlaw's doing. We're like, but look at Fred.
So like Greenlaw had a little bit more of a struggle this game, right? He dropped the pick, had the penalty, he missed some tackles. Right. I think that you can kind of see that, but he didn't have a bad game like by any stretch or anything like that. But I do think that everybody was sound in their technique. Everybody was good. I mean, to see Diamador Lenore, you look at his numbers, it was 67 yards through the air. One of them was just on one play. Other than that, they were fine, right? Like he was fine. He has the interception. Mooney went back to being clamps. He allowed one catch. Again, told you not to worry about that. Hufanga's up at the line blitzing with this timing of, now, you know what, man? I'm tired of the Troy Polamalu thing, but it's hard to not look at him and say, man, that's what Troy Polamalu would have done, like right there in that spot. So everybody is contributing. That felt like the defense that we were so accustomed to early on in the season, and it's showing up again at the right time. So, I'm not the guy that likes to say, I told you so. Oh, wait, I'm the guy that loves to say, I told you so. Don't worry about this defense. I think they'll be fine as long as they can continue to play the way that they have. And again, Omenahu leaves this game with an injury for a little bit, but you still have Jordan Willis who can step in. Kerry Hyder, who was playing inside. Eric Armstead had himself a game in this game. Again, they're just so deep and they're healthy. And I think that as long as they can have that, they can feel that defense, they can go up against anybody and slow them down as long as they're playing disciplined.
100%. And I had such a beautiful view of Talanoa Hufanga creeping up and timing that blitz. It somehow Dak got it off. Like, credit to Dak, he actually completed that pass, but Hufanga couldn't have timed it any better, and he just shot straight through like a missile. And my eyes were right on him the entire time because I could see him creeping. You're like, oh, Hufanga's going to blitz this. And he just came rushing through, almost got there. But when you got Hufanga playing like that, and again, like if we are going to see a little bit more cover 3 and stuff like that, might give Hufanga a little bit more freedom to kind of, maybe roam, play a little robber action, some of that type of stuff. But we'll see how that continues to go. But also back to the conversation about Fred Warner. I think back to like one of my favorite Fred games was 2019 against Baltimore in the rain. Do you remember that game?
Yes, I do. Where he's covering Mark Andrews up the field and Hollywood.
Hollywood. He was I was like, that's the man. That's all pro Fred. Like, that was the year where he really solidified himself as all pro Fred. But to your point, it's funny. I said the same thing on my live after the game. I was like, man, like, I am guilty of just taking for granted Fred Warner and just how good he is. Like, I like, even with my posting, like, sometimes I'm like, damn, I haven't posted Fred Warner in a hell of a long time. That's a captain. That's a middle linebacker. That's a prototype. I'm like, how do I not post that guy more? Sometimes it's just like, he's been that for almost his whole career, that it's like, that's just Fred. And like, we're out here getting excited about Dre Greenlaw. And Dre Greenlaw's having a phenomenal year, but it's like, man, they just have so much talent on this defense. So this matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, they got weapons. A.J. Brown, they've got Devontae Smith. They have Miles Sanders, who's playing really well.
Dallas Goedert.
I mean, I've been calling Dallas Goedert because we've had a Eagles fan chirping us in our chat. I've been calling them like Houston Gogurt. Basically, you take any city in Texas and you just replace it because, you know, the Dallas play. So
got it.
Arlington and I just been calling him Gogurt. So that's just the way we're going right now, because he was saying, I was trolling because he was saying Gogurt is better than Kittle, and I was like, oh no. You don't go there with me.
No. Stop. But I will say this. I am one of the highest on Dallas Goedert, and it's not because I like have him. I went all over him on all my dynasty rosters when I had a chance to draft him. No, I just think that he's an amazing player. But yeah, he's not Kittle. Let's slow down. He's not there yet. He'll get there.
Yeah, he's not bad. Like, he made this.
No, he's great.
He made this one catch. I was watching some Eagles tape last night against Dallas. He made a really nice catch, and he made a really nice block. And I was like, all right.
No, he's really, really good.
Yeah, no, he's good. So we'll give him that. Not Kittle, but I mean, dude, speaking of Kittle, like, and we talked about him already, but like, he's been a spark for this team ever since Brock Purdy showed up. Like, do you imagine that will continue?
I do, because when you look around on this defense, right? When you look around at where you can attack Philly, you don't attack Bradbury, you don't attack Slay, right? And I was looking at the base defense that Philly has. Philly runs a 5-2-4. So that's 5 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and 4 defensive backs in base, right? And this is on first down typically, right? First, second down, right? They're nickel, and this depends if Avonte Maddox is going to play in this game. Is either going to be Avonte Maddox in the slot or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I was kind of intrigued by the 5-2-4 look, though, right? So when you look at this team, right, and you have your 5 down linemen, which are Sweat, Hargrave, Joseph, Cox, and Reddick, right? There's a reason that this team can get to the quarterback and they lead the league in sacks, right? But then you look at their linebackers, Zamir White, I believe his name is, Kaiser White, I apologize, and TJ Edwards. I was looking through their coverage numbers, and they have been targeted 3rd and 4th on this team with 72 and 71 targets, 53 catches for White, 41 for Edwards. The person who gives up the second most yards on this team is Kaiser White, 450. And Darius Slay leads them with 525, but he has 79 targets, 43 receptions. But he's very good. You don't want to test him. For me, I think it's going to come down to who are you going to attack? So you've got this list of Kaiser White, TJ Edwards, both linebackers, Marcus Epps, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. That's probably your best chance to sustain the passing game. And that's why I think George Kittle is going to have a big game in this game. I think, again, if anybody knows how to attack linebackers, it's going to be Kyle Shanahan. And there's one other person that I think is really going to have a big game here, and I do think it's Deebo Samuel, because they are going to put Deebo Samuel in the slot. Now, whether that's Avonte Maddox or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I don't care. I'll take my chances out of the slot. It is very hard to get your hands on that man, and if you can't put pressure on him and get him off of his route, I think Deebo is going to have himself a big game. And also, when you think about that 21 depth personnel, right, where sometimes it'll be in the slot, Kyle Juszczyk with Deebo Samuel in the backfield and Christian McCaffrey out wide. it's got to be done against these safeties, slot corners, and linebackers because this defensive line is so stout, because James Bradbury is so good, because Darius Slay is so good. You don't go at the strengths unless you have an obvious advantage. You go at the obvious weakness, which is not even a slight at these guys. They're just not as good as these guys. Same goes for the 49ers. That's why people go after Diamandola, North Gibson, Hufanga. You don't go after Fred. You don't go after Greenlaw. You don't go after Mooney, right? Like, you have to attack the weaknesses. Right now, I think this is where the 49ers are going to be able to back this defense off and still, because they're going to have to throw the ball. This isn't going to be a game where they can run it 40, 45 times. I don't think that's going to be sustainable. If you look at the way that the Eagles have given it up on the ground, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Jordan Davis was injured for a little bit. He's going to be back. They're pretty much at full health at this point.
Oh, that's right.
They're still going to have to throw the ball, and I do think you have to attack these linebackers and safeties.
And what a time to be alive right now, because if you would have said this team is going to have to throw the football in the playoffs maybe 3 months ago, we'd be like, ooh, we're a little cautious of that. But it's amazing that Brock Purdy, the rookie coming in place for Jimmy Garoppolo, actually I feel somewhat like I was watching that Cowboys game, and I know there was a method to his madness. So I'm not going to get mad at like the rhythm or what he was trying to accomplish in that first half. I know he's not just going to just let it rip. There was a method to what he was trying to accomplish. But I was like, man, let's let Brock cook a little bit. And I think we have that confidence in a rookie, and I think that's pretty special. And you also said, speaking of Debo, as you thought of someone who's going to get involved in this game, it was reported today that Debo Samuel was going to miss practice with an ankle, but per David Lombardi of The Athletic, guess who showed up at practice today? Debo Samuel. This boy's ready.
I wouldn't have been worried. I was not worried.
No one's worried. Kyle Shanahan went on to say that, both Debo Samuel, Elijah Mitchell, and Christian McCaffrey weren't going to practice today. He doesn't fear that they will miss the game this weekend, but hey, little boost right there to find out that Debo Samuel at practice today.
Just get him ready for Sunday.
That it wasn't.
Keep him in that Dragon Ball Z chamber all weekend. Show him what you need to do. Have a film session on Saturday about what you want to do on Sunday and unleash the beast, man. I don't think that anybody should be worried about any of these guys missing the game at all. I do think that this is going to be a game in which Debo Samuel is going to have a chance out of the slot to really work. And, sometimes it'll be Ayuk, sometimes it'll be Kittle, sometimes he's split tight or in the slot, like together. But I do think this feels like a Debo Samuel game, man. I really do. Debo Samuel and George Kittle game. I really do.
All right. So we got some super chats loading up. So first of all, thank you all for these super chats. We just got a fatty, probably the biggest of the state of the franchise history.
What?
Biggest in state of the franchise history. So we're going to get to our super chats.
Yeah.
But before we do, listen to 49ers Throwback. Smash the like button on both our channels. You can see we're doing the dual stream. So do us a favor. Sub to both channels if you haven't already. Smash the like button on both channels already, because we're getting ready for an epic battle in the NFC. Jason, I just called you Jordan. Jason.
That's a compliment.
Hey, our board. Hey, Joe, shout out quickly.
Shout out to Pressbox Elliott. Pressbox Elliott.
Let's go, dog.
Let's go,
man. Legend, man. So happy for him. That's our boy right there. But before we get everything going, we got all kinds of super chats, so I'm going to get through these and all that good stuff. Make sure you subbing to both channels. Shout out Chris.
Chris, man, that is extremely generous, man. I thank you so much for that. It's incredibly generous. I'm honored, humbled. Thank you so much. And especially in the time, I know times are rough for everybody. I really appreciate that. We really appreciate that. It means a lot, man. Go fucking Niners, man. Like, this is how hype we are, man. Like, God, like, I want this for you guys. I promise you, man. Like, Me, I'm gonna have to do this regardless, but I want this for you. I want you guys to be able to say we're going to Glendale, and then we have one more chance to finish this off, and we can literally write up the 30 for 30 and the Disney series and make the movie and just cast it all and just get it done, man. But Chris, thank you so much, man. It means a lot. Your generosity, I can't say enough about, and I'm honored, man.
We need Super Bowl Aponte. This man's credentialed. We need him credentialed covering the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl. We need that 2-week lead up time. We're not ready to be done with football. We've been saying it all this whole postseason run. We are not ready to be done. And we understand it's going to be a difficult matchup coming up, but we're not ready to be done. We're ready for this fight and everything that goes along with it. Shout out, Chris. That is legendary, man. Legendary status. And shout out to everyone. Even if, obviously we give special shout outs to the super chats and all that kind of stuff. But again, just shout out to everyone who's been vibing with us all year for the last 2 years, Jason.
Yeah.
For State of the Franchise, man. It's been a blast, and I appreciate getting together with you every Wednesday to talk about 49ers football. We always have a good time.
But we haven't lost since like the Stone Age.
So we're gonna get through the super chats. I got some super chats stacking up, so I'm just gonna go in order which I got them saved. And again, shout out Chris. He got bumped to the top for dropping the 100-piece on us. But let's get to Wesley Brooks, who drops a 20-piece on us. Shout out Wesley. He says the Niners' disrespect is incredible. Listening to national media, some say they should not show up. Niners have been in 3 of the last 4 NFC championships with the number 1 defense in football all year. The Eagles are good. Niners been doing it. Yeah. Thoughts?
The Niners and the Eagles are the 2 best teams in the NFC. That's why, I wrote an article on Niners Nation that if they didn't make the NFC Championship game, I would have labeled this season a disappointment, because if you look at everybody else, nobody cares about Dallas, Tampa Bay, Seattle, the Giants, the Vikings. Didn't care about any of them. I knew the 49ers, faced with any of those teams, would have been able to dispatch them. This was what it was always going to be. Number 1 seed, number 2 seed, the best 2 teams in the NFC. Again, the 49ers are looking to be the 4th team in 10 seasons to lead the league in total defense and scoring defense to make the Super Bowl. The other 3 teams were the Seattle Seahawks in 2013 and 14 and the Denver Broncos in 2015. Funny how that happened in 3 straight years. The 49ers are looking to follow them up and be the 4th team. Again, a lot of people took the little slide against the Raiders and all these other, games. And it's like, I can play that game all day. Philadelphia almost lost to Indianapolis. Philadelphia almost lost to Houston. Again,
to Washington and Taylor Heineke.
They lost to Washington, right? Like,
at home, I believe, too.
Right? Like, I can do this all day. I don't understand how almost losses only count against the 49ers, but they don't count against your opponent. Like, Philadelphia almost lost to the Houston Texans, the Indianapolis Colts. Like, so what is it about almost losses for the 49ers that only matter for them, but we have to overlook those almost losses because you know what they call almost losses, Brad Graham? Wins. Wins are wins, and it doesn't matter how you get them. So I'm sorry, man. Like, I don't understand why there's this discussion and a rush to disparage a team because they faced an NFL team that gets paid to play football and played a very good game, while the 49ers probably didn't play their best game, but still walked out with a victory. But we're supposed to just ignore the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles almost lost to the Houston Texans on Thursday Night Football to Davis Mills and Lovie Smith and the vaunted Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts and the vaunted, Matt Ryan and whatever, who the hell ever was the coach at that point. We're supposed to just let that slide, but we have to sit here and listen to how we almost lost to the Raiders and almost lost to this team. It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life, man.
Again, I love it because I think it plays perfectly into our hand. Like this team knows how good they are. They know how special they are. We know this core's primarily been together since 2018, 2019, hell, some since 2017. And there's something to say about, we talk about the locker room all the time. We reference that play against the Seattle Seahawks where Debo gets his leg pulled and the entire team just short-circuited into demigods, and they're like, all right, we're done. Thanos then dissolved the Seattle Seahawks out of thin air. That speaks to the type of locker room these guys are, and let's face, they like that energy. Yeah. Oh, they keep you see Debo Samuel posting all week. He's pulling Micah Parsons receipts. He's clapping back at Micah Parsons. They love this energy, so that's why it fits and feeds perfectly into what we're doing. Like there's a different type of pressure that comes from proving people right opposed to proving people wrong. When
100%.
you're proving people wrong, you have nothing to lose, because if you lose, everyone's just going to be like, see, told you so. You're like, all right, whatever. We'll get them next time. But when you got to prove them right, there's like this pressure that comes along, like where you start to stack your expectations against yourself, other people's expectations. You're like, it's starting to weigh on you a little bit. And I think it actually feeds into the San Francisco 49ers right now that everyone is talking mess. Greg says, appreciate the super chat. I live in New Jersey. Philly fans are cocky and have arrogant confidence, but are very nervous because the Niners are the scariest team they'll play. And Niners got it. Fate. I mean, I would imagine we've had Eagles fans talking this week, especially in our chats and stuff, but there's got to be a little bit of like nervous confidence, right? Like they're going to be confident, and you live in this area, so can you speak to this at all?
Yeah, I can. I do think that they wanted Dallas, no matter what they'll say. Like they're laughing at Dallas like the rest of us are, but they definitely wanted Dallas because I think that was their
know
matchup.
Dallas.
Right. And I think that that's the thing. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of that. And a little bit back to your point about being the underdog. I'm human too, Brad. And you know what I love doing? I love proving people wrong, right? As an independent content creator, you can't get credential for this. You're never going to blow up. You're never going to do this. You're never going to do that. You know what? Yeah. Now you got to watch. Wrong. You're wrong, right? It's human nature to prove people wrong. It is human nature to hear that you can't do something and break through and do that. And that's just one example. Trust me, man. Tell me I can't do something, and now I am literally, if it was a goal, I am literally doing it now just to prove you wrong now at this point. Trust me, man. You know me on Twitter. The receipts, they come out. I sit there, I save them. I don't say shit, and then I just wait for it to happen because I know it can happen. And if I believe in myself the same way that the 49ers do, they're embellishing this role. They love it. They love it. They love what is going on here. I love that the same thing too. So Philly fans right now, what they're doing is they are giving you bravado because they've been the number one seed, because they had the week off, because they've been so good. And I don't like Colin Cowherd mostly, but I do think he did say something that was really good, and I think you posted it. If you took both of these teams and made a Pro Bowl team out of just the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers, you would take your chance against any Pro Bowl team out there any year. That is how both these teams are loaded. So Philadelphia fans are kind of using that to poke out their chest, but deep down inside, they do know that if there is a team that can stop them, if there is a team that can come into their building and knock them off, it is the 49ers. So of course they've got to be cocky, but deep down in their heart, they know in the back of their mind that the 49ers are a team that nobody wants to play over and over again. No matter how many times people try to tell you it was the Packers, no matter how many weeks people try to tell you it was the Cowboys because they beat the Bucs, it was always the San Francisco 49ers. This team is built to beat you however you want, and it just showed you again this week. You want a dogfight? You want us to fight you and you want to be physical? Cool. You better match that for 60 minutes. Otherwise, you're not going to finish it. You want us to come back and win in a shootout? We can do that. You want us to blow you out? We'll blow you out. So the 49ers have won in every single way during this winning streak. So again, Philadelphia Eagle fans right now have watched their team kind of struggle for the most part down the stretch because Jalen Hurts was injured, and see them kind of grasp at that number one seed and kind of hold on to it. But in the back of their mind, they know that. Yeah, in the back of their mind, they know, man. They know that if there's a team to knock them off, it is the San Francisco 49ers. And now the 49ers are hearing that they have no chance. The 49ers are looking around at themselves like, we just won 12 straight games. We have a chance to go on a run where we win 14 straight and win the bowl, and we don't have a chance. They're hearing all of that. They're using it. It's only human nature. And Eagle fans are just kind of, we were good. And they're kind of slowing down a little bit in the back of their mind. They feel it.
Well said. And I also too believe, and I said it earlier, I just get the sense that whoever wins this game is going to win the Super Bowl. Like, and that's no slight at the AFC. It's no slight at the Bengals or the Chiefs. And we know what happened with the Chiefs earlier this year, and they took it to us. But I don't think the 49ers played their best game in all three phases of football. Like, literally played their worst imaginable game they could have played against the Chiefs in that moment, and it was still, all things considered, what, a 1 point game at halftime. Like, they just collapsed in the second half. And but we have a different quarterback. We got Christian McCaffrey fully integrated. We have Elijah Mitchell back. There's a lot of different elements to this team. And I think this matchup is going to be such a dogfight that it's going to be hard pressed for whichever team comes out, whether it's the Eagles, whether it's the 49ers. Of course, we're going to believe it's the 49ers, but whichever team comes out, like, this is going to be the grittiest, toughest, scrappiest, like any adjective you can think of. That's what this NFC Championship game is going to be. And that's why I do think whoever comes out of this is going to have that boost and that confidence and the experience to be able to take down whoever's coming out of the AFC. Mm-hmm. So, and again, that's just a personal feeling. We don't know how it's going to play out, but I really do think this matchup is going to be intense. And to the points that we keep making, I am happy that the 49ers are the underdogs going into this. And, you know, let's face it, they're on the road. They're going to East Coast, different time zone.
They should be the underdog.
We know, like, we've heard, you might know better than I do. It's going to be my first time in Philly. But everything that I've heard about that atmosphere is that it is intense. Like, it's crazy energy, like angry energy.
I went in week 2, and that was just a regular season game.
That's right. You went last with Croc, right?
With Croc, yeah. And Croc wasn't being nice. You hear so much about the Philly fans. You hear so much about like what they are, and Croc is like on his phone, like, "Oh, they quiet! Oh, they quiet!" yelling at everybody. And I'm just like, "Croc, we can't fight the ball, man. We can't fight the ball." Nobody said a thing, though. Nobody said a thing. I do think that had to do with it being week 2. Expectations. You know, the game is going to be a lot different. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't – look, 49er fans, if you're traveling to the game, I do believe in the fact that I still believe in good-natured people. If you exude normal confidence and you're just playing and you're just watching the game and you're rooting for your team, you're not being obnoxious, you're not antagonizing people, you're not being overly enthusiastic or just like antagonizing anyone, I think you will be fine. But absolutely keep your head on a swivel, just because – football games are intense. Every single football game I've ever been to, and this is why, like, you know, I got to start arguing with somebody about like, oh, well, San Francisco is really bad too. Every single football game I've been to, when you mix the aggression with alcohol, there's going to be a fight. And there is going to be a fight one way or another. There's going to be 2 idiots that are going to fight. I just want you guys to know, if you're going to the game, you have to get back home to your family. You can't go to jail. You cannot ruin your life just trying to fight somebody over a football game, please. Yeah. So cooler heads need to prevail. Root for your team. Be cool. Try to have your head on a swivel, but also just be safe. That's it.
100%. Well said. Let's get to the rest of the super chats. We haven't talked about this. Harold says, how much of a distraction is Omenahu's arrest? Will it affect the team? Eagles report that they will run on Bosa as he's weak against the run. What are your thoughts on that?
The Omenahu thing is tough because we obviously do not condone any sort of domestic violence anyway, right? But I do think it's important for people to not rush to judgment until all the facts are absolutely clear. You can still be on the side of saying, I do not like domestic violence. That is terrible. That is something that's very bad, while also sitting there waiting for the facts. Too many people have jumped out the window and said things on both sides that I feel are a little bit too far. Absolutely condemning Charles Omenahu is the wrong thing, and absolutely downplaying this as nothing is the absolute wrong thing. There's nothing wrong with sitting here and waiting to gather information. And if you listen to Kyle Shanahan, that's exactly what they plan to do at this point. The details are the details. I wasn't there. I will not speculate. I do not think that one is more serious than the other. For me, it's all the same sort of thing. But they are obviously going to let the legal process play out. And that would be my advice to all 49er fans at this point. No heavy opinions. Just let it play out. And if the 49ers feel confident in playing him and bringing him out for the game, then you know that they're doing their due diligence, because they definitely do not stand for any of this. As you guys have seen, they built the culture in this way. So, look, will it affect the team? I doubt it. What you need to do right now is just wait for all of the facts. Do not rush to condemn this man. Do not completely dismiss this either. I think there is a middle ground that needs to be where you're listening to everything and you're getting all of the information. That's the best way to do it. And as far as the Eagles saying that they're going to run at both sides, I think that's really smart at this point. I mean, you don't want to run, towards the other guys. I mean, Eric Armstead's amazing. Samson Ebukam's very good against the run. Bosa's been very good against the pass. I would say that that's a little bit of weakness in this game, but that wouldn't be something that I'm super concerned about. There's still guys on the backside that, or play side that'll help in terms of pursuit. The defense is too fast. Traditional running does not scare me as much as zone read and Jalen Hurts creating with his legs.
And also, too, just to echo what you said, I think you said it perfectly. And there's really not a whole lot to add because I do think it's a fluid situation and you just have to manage it as it comes. And Kyle Shanahan did talk about it today. And based on the information that they've gathered, they feel comfortable with Charles playing this week. So that should tell you a little bit more about, because we don't have the info. We only have like the police reports and we can take what we want from that. But we understand that the San Francisco 49ers have been down this road before. I mean, I tweeted about it. I was like, oh, like I instantly
PTSD Reuben Foster.
The Reuben Foster thing again, because I was having to post about it in real time, like when he was in court, and like I was like, oh my, like I was like, not now, but all things considered, the 49ers are going to manage this the right way because they have the experience to manage it the right way. Have they been perfect always? Maybe they've had slip ups here or there, but they figured it out down the line. And so I think out of any organization, they are best suited to manage this. And if they feel comfortable with Charles playing based on all the information that they have, then I just have to say, you know what? Just like you said, we don't condemn that type of behavior or actions at all, but we also understand there's two sides to every story, and we don't really have either side. Right. We're just kind of getting a general overview. So can't condone it,
can't condemn it at this point. Like you just have to, like, again, it doesn't take a genius to know that's the wrong thing to do. Like no man should put their hands on a woman. No woman should put their hands on a man. That's just not how things should be done. But also there is a legal process that needs to play out at this point, and I do think that's the best way to do it.
100%. So we expect Charles to play this weekend, and yes. He's been a huge asset to the San Francisco 49ers.
And it's just a bummer too to have this kind of be the thing that he's going to be remembered for after having such a great year in which we want him to be signed back and everything as well too. So the ramifications of this will be felt deeper and deeper as we go on and as this legal process plays out. But as of right now, it looks like the 49ers are doing what, I'm telling you to do, is just allowing this thing to play out. And they've asked the right questions. They feel confident in what Charles has told them. They feel confident in the information that they've been given, that they are going to let the legal process play out, and then they'll make a decision from there.
Exactly. And so all we can do is look at the organization who is well suited to handle this, and we just have to trust that they're going to make the best judgments possible, and we just follow suit. This one. So I think this is about, and I think you referenced this earlier, about how Sirianni, and like I read it and I was like, and I think you can even see in the quote, like he was processing, like, should I actually say this out loud? Mm-hmm. And then he goes, you know what? Jalen Hurts is like Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. Is that going to come back and haunt them at all? Is this one of those the things you just put on the bulletin board right in the middle of the locker room? Like, oh, look, guys, we're playing against Michael Jordan.
Look, I think what he meant was what he means to the team, right? I have an opinion that you guys are not going to really like about this, right? A lot of people don't like arrogance. They don't like confidence, right? And it bothers people because they would never be like that, right? Yeah. You know what's the simplest way to make Nick Sirianni humble and not arrogant? Beat them on Sunday. There you go. I mean, if Floyd Mayweather tells you, I'm going to get in the ring with you and I'm going to beat you, and then you can't beat him, is that arrogance? Sure. But you know how you shut him up? Punch him in the mouth. The same thing. With Sirianni, he's earned this. I mean, they've been winning games over and over this entire season. They've been great. That's how he does his business. But if you want to shut him up, then finish the job on Sunday. Do it. I don't really care about the antics, man. You have a shot right here to shut him up. If the antics bother you so much, then be better. Then be better than them. Then finish the game with more points than them, and he'll have to shut up. My biggest problem with Nick Sirianni is this. As a hip-hop fan, Philadelphia, anywhere that I've been in the country, Dreams and Nightmares intro, when that goes up, the whole place goes up. Doesn't matter where you are. Atlanta, Florida, Texas, California, New York. especially Philly. So there's a report that came out in practice that Dreams and Nightmares goes up, and right before the beat drops for Hold Up, Wait a Minute, Nick Sirianni unplugs it and puts on Eminem. That's the sure sign of you trying to get your team beat. Like, you are definitely trying to let your team lose. Like, at that point, to literally let probably the greatest intro in the history of hip hop get to its peak right there, pull it off, and then put on Eminem really means you want to demotivate your team, right? Averly, right? Averly, yep. Eminem's Eminem over Meek Mill. Like, what are we doing here in Philly? What are we doing? Why are we doing this? But go. But yeah, I just think that's hilarious to me. It's like he's showing them 8 Mile battles with Eminem, and I'm just like, dude, they're not from Detroit. Meek Mill's from Philadelphia. They won a Super Bowl. Coming out to the hardest intro in the history of the Super Bowl is when the Philadelphia Eagles came out to the Dreams and Nightmares intro. That's the reason.
One of the most iconic moments in the past decade was that defense going crazy on the field to that song.
That's the reason they beat Tom Brady. It don't got nothing to do with X's and O's. We are talking about vibes. What are the vibes, man? What are we talking about, man? Why would you? If I'm in practice and that happens, and I'm the Philadelphia Eagles and we're getting hype, and he turns that off, I gotta go. Yo, I gotta go to the front office. Like, I gotta go to the owner. Like, yo, we got a problem, man. We have a big problem with our coach, man. He's got to get up out of here, man. So, yeah, I just think it's funny that was something that came out, and I'm like, oh wow, the Eagles are in deep shit now.
So we'll see how that comes back to bite them. But that's so I didn't know that was the story behind it. I heard about them playing Eminem. I didn't know there was like he literally played that song and cut it and dropped in the 8
right before Hold Up, Wait a Minute. Y'all thought I was finished? Everybody's supposed to go stupid when that part comes out, and you cut it off. And what, for the real Slim Shady? Nobody want to hear that shit.
Mom spaghetti, knees weak.
Oh God. Absolutely not, man.
Oh wow. My goodness. Interesting move there. Well, it's bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how this one plays out.
I doubt Nicky Foles cares about Meek Mill. I doubt that you know anything about vibes, my boy. And it sounds like you're vibeless. It couldn't be me.
Vibeless. There you go.
Without vibes. He who is without vibes is that comment and that guy. Unbelievable. Nicky Foles has nothing to do with Meek Mill. Will you shut up, man?
You shut up, man. Christ, man. Brian says, appreciate what y'all do and always make great points. Can't wait for this game. Other point that gives me confidence. This is a pretty even matchup. People bring up our strength of schedule. Can you guess whose was easier? Have you dabbled in the strength of schedule conversation at all?
Yeah. I think the 49ers actually 7-1 against playoff teams. They are 6-1. And if you go through the adjusted strength of schedule, I think the Eagles had an easier schedule. The 49ers didn't get to play Houston and a few of those other teams that they did. But I will say this. The Eagles did play in a very good division. And 4 teams were in the running to make the playoffs in the NFC East, right? And 3 of them did. So there is something to be said about that, right? Like, you have 6 games against a division that was highly contested, right? And Washington beat them once. I think that was their only divisional loss. But I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the Eagles did have an easier adjusted strength of schedule, but they have like almost identical records against playoff teams, 7-1 and 6-1.
Okay. So I haven't done too much deep diving into the strength of schedule thing. I'm more of that throwback, old school. You play who's in front of you, and
look,
you're week to week.
It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It doesn't, again, when you looked at the 49ers schedule, right? Like, this is, again, how many times do we talk about this? The NFL has done an amazing job of releasing the schedule and making it an event, right? Because people plan trips and they start to look, but then everybody starts to do the win-loss thing, right? Okay.
Right.
So let's start over again. Let's try this one more time. Okay. Chicago first, you would have said win. Well, the 49ers lost.
Oh.
Second game, Seattle, you said win. You probably got it right. Third week, Denver, you would have said, you know what? I think the 49ers are going to lose this game, but they should have really won that game. So schedules change, and the way that the strength of the schedule changes when you get more and more information on teams. They don't come out the right way. Their coaching isn't the right way. Maybe guys get injured. All of that stuff is fun early on in the year, and it's a fun exercise to do. But when you look through the schedule, I don't think anybody would have said after this Chiefs game, the 49ers aren't going to lose again. It was very possible. But again, like the strength of schedule thing and the opening schedule, it's a fun exercise, but it's not something that, again, when you look back, it kind of looks silly when you really think about it.
I agree. Let's see. We still got a couple super chats stacked up here. Boxing says, was so annoyed seeing us run the ball only down the middle.
There was an interesting interview after the game with Steve Weiss and Trent Williams, in which he said it seemed like you guys transitioned to more inside runs in this game at the end of the game, and that's when the offense really was able to run the ball. And he said, "You're absolutely right. We made the adjustment. We were trying to get to the edges. Dallas was very fast to the edges. They were closing things off. It was again another adjustment." And shout out to Mike McGlinchey. Everybody's looking at that one play in which, Michael Parsons hip tossed him. That obviously looks bad. But if you go back and you look at the Christian McCaffrey touchdown, he's blocking two guys, opening things up. So it's everybody posts the one play that whatever, it's funny. Even I did it. I thought it was kind of funny.
Hey,
But then again,
we played it back on the film session.
right.
Like, oh, you got on that one. You know, it
You got
happens
it.
to the best of us.
You
It's
got to give it
Micah
up, right?
Parsons, right?
But everybody doesn't run to post when Mike literally plows the road for Christian McCaffrey, and how the physicality that they showed inside eventually wore down Dallas. So I did think that they were trying too much, a little bit outside. And then towards the end of the game, they got back to the inside running, which opened up as they got more and more physical and Dallas wore down.
Yeah, when they started getting back to that gap scheme and they started, back to the counters and like kind of the Zorro concept and like just getting back to running in between the tackles, it started to look like a little bit of poetry in motion. And you're like, okay, this is what you got. Brandon Ayuk blocking, you got Charlie Warner out here cleaning clocks. It definitely took a turn in the second half. And again, that's what good coaches do. It's good what good teams do. They make adjustments if something isn't working. You don't just keep trying to take a square peg and push it through a round hole.
Establish the run, Brad. Establish the run.
You got to make adjustments. And the 49ers did just that. All right, we're getting through the super chats. Beast Mode Gaming says they're forgetting that the Niners are the number one bird killers. 49ers have, except for the Falcons, the 49ers have taken care of any bird teams this year. Swept the Cardinals, swept the Seahawks. The Falcons gave us some trouble, but that was the Falcons just happened to play their best game of the entire year. That game, it felt like.
Yeah, I like this concept. I mean, that's 5 wins against bird teams, because not only did the 49ers sweep the Seahawks, they beat them 3 times in the same season. I was told that that's impossible to do. So yeah, I guess this is a nice little stat. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, this is again top 2 teams. They're just so evenly matched, man. It's going to be a heavyweight fight. Like, if you can tell, my energy is still there, but I'm not nearly as confident in the victory in this game, even though I am picking the 49ers to win, guys. Don't go out the window with this one. But as I was last week, because I just know Dallas wasn't like that and they couldn't get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. Joshua Wyatt says Philly has been a bully in every matchup. They've never had to deal with getting bullied. Do you think they might have a glass jaw? This is a heavyweight fight. Reminds me of Ali versus Foreman. What is your take on that?
Brad. I'm gonna ask you a question, and So here's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna take over. So I'm the one who's hosting now. This is my show now. All right, okay. Brad Graham. Okay,
you run this.
Yes, Bradley Graham. As the offensive the offensive line connoisseur of this program.
Okay? Yes, sir.
There was a back and forth that I saw with you on Twitter with someone else about the Eagles' offensive line. And I wanted to ask you, because Lane Johnson's a hell of a left tackle. He's probably the closest thing to Trent Williams on this side of the Mississippi, right?
Yeah, he's very good.
I do think that he is very good, but people seem to forget Nick Bosa got him last year, for 2 sacks, right? When you look around at the rest of this offensive line, there seems to be a lot of talk about Jordan Mailata. Can you speak to me about Jordan Mailata and why people are calling him the weakest link? Because there is probably on every offensive line one player who is not as good as the others. But why is it that all of a sudden people are seeming like they can pick on Jordan Mailata? I'll sit back and I'll listen.
You know what? That's a great observation, Jason. And I honestly find myself scratching my head as well, because when you go back and you actually watch the tape rather than cherry picking stats that kind of fit narratives, and you watch the actual ins and outs and the nuance of the offensive line, Jordan Mailata is a phenomenal offensive lineman. And the best thing about the offensive line is that it's individuals playing as a unit. It's the O-line unit Like it's very rare that you can just totally single out. Like you can, of course, do that, but you're going to get chips from your tight ends. You're going to get help. You're going to get pass protection help from your running backs. You're going to be sliding protection. You're going to be passing off stunts. It's how the unit works as a whole. And so I do feel it is a bit of a fool's errand to be able to try to single out one specific player and just be like, this is the weakest link on an offensive line that is probably the best unit in football. And when you look at all 5 guys across that offensive line, and I watched them last night. They're very good. They're very, like, even Jordan Mailata, he's big. Yep. He's lumbering. He's massive human. And going up against a extremely quick-twitched Micah Parsons. Now, he didn't win 100 out of 100, but guess what? That's what happens in the offensive line versus defensive line. There's a give and take to that position. And when I go back and I watch against the best player not named Nick Bosa I've seen on defense this year, and I watched that matchup specifically, Jordan Mailata did a hell of a job. He got beat a couple times. It's going to happen. But when you take the body of work, to call him a weak link or try to quantify him as the weakest link, it feels like an oxymoron in my opinion, because it's a bit contradictory of like, oh, this is the weakest guy on the best offensive line in football. And you're like, but it's the best offensive line in football. He's really good. Okay, that's fine. As you know, you set me up really well because I got a little. I have dealt with O-line discourse, for the better part of 2 years on Twitter, and I don't scout offensive line through PFF stats or anything like that. And to see a narrative try to be spun off, it just kind of gets me going. It gets me going. And so I'm like, we're not going to do that. Jordan Mailata is good. The offensive line is good. Every offensive line has its weak points, and you have an ability to attack based on what traits they have and what they don't have. But that's a good offensive line. And I just don't want to try to spin a narrative that they're weak or they have a weakest point to them that can be penetrated, because they deserve respect. And I'm not going to go out on a limb and say they don't deserve that respect.
Bradley Graham, a big advocate of watching the tape over box score scouting. You heard it here first, folks. Now here, another thing, and this is where I'm going to spin it to my point, actually. Make sure you watch the tape also when you come out, because if you're just going to start citing a bunch of like pressures and all that stuff, it's just like, okay, now you got to talk to me about technique, all that stuff too.
Where's the context?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And what was the protection? What's going on? What was the drop? All of those things. It's just, oh well, he gave up this many pressures. He must be bad. Okay, well, watch the games. All right. So Bradley Graham, my take on this is Lane Johnson's dealing with a groin injury, something that was supposed to sideline him for the rest of the season. Now he did have a week off.
I didn't know that.
Yes, he did have a week off, and he played through it because he's a tough son of a bitch, and he's one of the best in the game. But I do think that people are kind of overlooking that matchup in itself with Nick Bosa, not only because of what happened. Obviously, in week 2, Nick Bosa's got a lot more juice than he does in week whatever we're in, because he's played a long season. He is the defensive player of the year. He is, trying to push his body to the limit right now. But I do think that Lane Johnson, against Nick Bosa is a little bit more of an advantage for Bosa. Having said that, Lane Johnson's incredible. And I do think when you look at the New York Giants and the problems that they present, is more on the interior. I mean, I don't think you can find a better interior duo than Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams. I mean, we all love what Kayvon Thibodeau can do, but he's still clearly not at the point where he can be considered as like an elite edge guy. I don't think Azeez Ojulari played in this game. If he did, I didn't really see too much from him. Right. So Lane Johnson is
injury all year.
Lane Johnson is dealing with a significant injury, a significant groin injury.
I did not know that.
Yeah, one that it usually knocks out other grown men from playing for the rest of the year.
Would you say that would make him the weakest link?
I would say that is a matchup that people are forgetting and they're not looking at because it is based on name brand. And I do think that is somewhere where the 49ers can come up a little bit bigger this week, even though I think the world of Lane Johnson, and he is the closest thing to Trent Williams in our game.
Yeah, Lane Johnson. I mean, that offensive line, they got dogs across the board. Landon Dickerson is a dog. You got freaking Jason Kelsey, dog. Like even I forget his name, like Isaac Polly Boy over there at right guard. He's good too, man. Like they just have a freaking stout offensive line. There are going to be ways that you can attack. Like if we isolate Mailata versus like let's say a Sosa. Like there's going to be times where Sosa is going to be able, or like Samson Ebukam
Sosa.
is going to be able to use his size, his actually being about 6'2", and his ability to create that leverage already. That actually might benefit him a little bit against Mailata because he has the speed, the quickness, and he has the leverage already. But we've also seen from Samson is that he can get eaten up by bigger offensive tackles too. So it's a bit of both worlds. So it is going to be very interesting to see how the matchups play out. But it is going to be a phenomenal, like both. This trench warfare that we're getting ready to.
This is where the game's going to get decided.
Ooh, the tape's going to be fun from this one. I'm looking forward to it.
Now, Brad, we did have some news just come across. The Washington Commanders have completed an interview with running backs coach from the San Francisco 49ers, Anthony Lynn, as well, too. So, yes, that is something that we need to add in there.
Wow, no way.
Yes.
Shout out Anthony Lynn, former head coach, right, of the Chargers.
And I do want to remind people, if Anthony Lynn does get promoted to a higher position, that is what, Bradley Graham, for the 49ers?
Oh, no way. More comp picks.
Ding, 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 ding. I think he has to stay one more year, though. I think he actually has to stay one more year. I think I do.
But that's why
I think he has to be there for 2 years. If he stays 2 years and he gets another job as a head coach or an offensive coordinator, then they get another third-round comp pick.
If they get another third-round comp pick, I mean, the 49ers are going to be swimming in third-round draft picks. It's going to be
insane. They have no picks.
They have no picks, man.
Hey, we can trade for Christian McCaffrey. What a stupid
trade. Get roasted, bozos. All right, let's see. We got Cisco Kid saying Niners bump dreams and nightmares in the locker room after the win. I do like we're coming off a game with a tough defense, better prepared, now go win. And I think we talked about this earlier. Like I think the Dallas defense, they deserve some credit. You know, they weren't perfect. Trayvon Diggs gives me a little bit of Jalen Ramsey vibes, like good cover corner,
all or nothing,
but kind of soft a little bit. But I do think it is a great matchup, and I think it is going to prepare this team for this big time matchup against the Eagles.
Man, I'd love the trolling if the Niners played dreams and nightmares in the locker room after the game. Like that would be really good. But
that'd be pretty intense.
That'd be pretty good. You know what they should do? I know that this isn't like, what Debo and them listen to probably, right? Because they're into, a lot of Kodak. Slide down, walk. Sit down, walk.
Who's not into Kodak?
I don't know, but Debo and them, that's all they listen to, right? It's like Kodak and like NBA Youngboy.
A little baby.
But if they really wanted to troll, even if Drake and Meek Mill have patched this thing up, you need to hop out with the boombox playing back to back.
Ooh. That song slaps. That's one of my. I love that song.
Is that a world tour or your girl's tour?
On Twitter fingers.
Hey. That's trolling warfare right there.
No, that's a good one. Hey, no, I like that. That's a good one. That would be fun. I would get me hyped up. I'd be coming out the stands, ready to go. That song's fire. I love that. Let's see. We got a couple more. I think we finally making it to the bottom of our super chat list. And again, shout out to everyone who's sending the super chats. JP Hella Hard says Michael Jordan really knock it off with the shenanigans.
I just think that he was talking about his value to the team, right? Like not Michael Jordan as like the greatest of all time, but I do think that you even meaning that puts a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts, and I think it kind of gives you the idea of how they view him, and I think that's really more it is than it is just saying. I don't think he means that Jalen Hurts is the GOAT. I think that what Michael Jordan was to the Bulls was
the impact,
the most important part. That's what I think he meant. But, either way, I do think that the reason that he meant it that way is the thing that it had probably concerns me the most is because you're basically telling everyone that you go as Jalen Hurts goes. And if Jalen Hurts has a bad game, you're not going to win the game, right? So I think that's really where it's at.
Right. And Jalen has played at a really high level for the most of the year. You would hate to see him have a bit of a down game against the San Francisco 49ers. I know we had the Cowboys fans wishing for a mental breakdown on Brock Purdy. I don't think, I think Jalen's going to give us his best stuff.
Oh yeah.
He's really proved a lot to me, and I didn't love him at Alabama. I didn't love him at Oklahoma. I didn't love him coming out of the draft. I will take it. I'll be wrong on that one. I didn't. He didn't seem like someone, like, even when the Eagles drafted him when they had Wentz. I was like, what the hell are they doing, man? Like, what are they running over there, man? Like, I didn't know what was going on, but wild to see that it's turned out the way it has, and I give Jalen Hurts a hell of a lot of credit for being able to develop into the player he has been, because he's flipped me. I went out, I traded a ton of, dynasty. We talk about dynasty all the time. I went on, I got my Jalen Hurts shares like at a premium. I believe in Jalen Hurts. I've seen enough that I think he's really good. So I understand I think what Sirianni's talking about, because we saw what the Eagles look like with Minshew, and what was the talking point all year? Well, Minshew goes in there, nothing changes, which was the wildest talking point I think of one of this entire offseason in the NFL. I couldn't believe that, and I like Minshew too. So I do think that this is going to be, he has the opportunity to make or break this team, is really what it comes down to. I think the 49ers match up well against their run game. I think the defense and it's going to be like a bunch of just freaking bulls just running into each other, and you're going to have the running backs find the creases. But again, we have Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shaair going to be shooting gaps, and it's just going to be one of those. Keep saying it's going to be a dogfight, right? So it's going to be wild to see play out. I think, as we kind of get wrapped up, right? Like, even though we have a lot of much more respect for the Eagles, I think, than the Dallas Cowboys,
100%.
We still feel like the 49ers have a really good shot to come out of this with a dub. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be, I don't think either one of us are thinking blowouts, right? But I do think we both have a level of confidence that the 49ers can win this game.
Niners win this game. They win it 24-21. This is going to be the most physical, knockdown, drag-out game. I don't think anybody really wants to see these two teams when it's cold and it's going to be, outdoors and physical like this. 49ers find a way to get it done, put the league on notice. They'll be playing in Glendale in 2 weeks. If you hear me and you hear why I'm being calm, it's because I have a lot of respect for the Eagles. Nobody's scared. I know what this team can do. I still got the 49ers winning. This is not ending on Sunday. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I'm right there with you. I think this is going to be a crazy, crazy matchup. It's going to be one for the ages. And it's kind of going to be right on line with the 49ers kind of Cinderella story up until this point. And if they can get past the Eagles, start writing that movie script, because the San Francisco 49ers would obviously be headed to the Super Bowl in Glendale, Arizona, and talk about a wild, wild season, Jason. 4 quarters away, man.
4 quarters away from me going to my first Super Bowl as a credentialed member and covering the San Francisco 49ers, possibly being in the press box. They win 6, and I'm in that locker room, man. I'm going to rip off my suit jacket and just have a Niners jersey. Like, they're never going to let me back. They're never going to let me back to cover anything ever again, but it'll be fully worth it, man. I mean, we're that close. Year after year you get there. This is going to be just as a physical game as it was against the Rams last year, which went down to the wire. But I think this team is much better than last year's team. And I have full confidence in Kyle Shanahan and the weapons that they have to make enough plays to get it done against the Eagles. So a lot of respect to the Eagles, the number 1 and 2 best teams in the NFC. Not really, doesn't always happen this way. Something that's not really, typical, because last year the number 1 seed was the Green Bay Packers, and the 49ers knocked them off in the divisional round. So, the NFL this weekend, these 2 games, this is for it all, and I think they couldn't have asked for 2 better matchups than these 2.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, these 4 teams in the Final Four are well deserving. There's no pretenders here. All 4 of these teams are going to put up a fight, and it's going to be wild to see who's left standing heading into the Super Bowl. So definitely looking forward to it. Jason, as we talked about last week, it's not going to be our last State of the Franchise episode of
No,
the year,
no.
but we are very looking forward to talking about the plans for the Super Bowl next Wednesday, right? That's the hope. So, again, appreciate everyone as always for vibing with us on State of the Franchise on Wednesdays. Make sure you're subbed to both channels. You have Jason right there. Find Jason on YouTube. We're dual streaming, so you could pop on over there right now. If you're not, make sure that you're subbing to his channel. Always all the videos that we do. And Jason, what other? Because you're cooking content. You're cooking content for Niners Nation. You've got podcasts. Well, what else you got going this week?
Yeah, Niners Nation. I just dropped the article today. There'll be a few more this week. Probably not going to be able to make it to Philly this weekend. So I'll be
not
home.
making it to Philly.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It doesn't look like it. I got Mike McCarthy for the credentials. So it might be more conducive to the budget to stay here and then get ready for Mobile and then Glendale after that. But NinersNation.com.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
Yeah, NinersNation.com. You'll find all of my content there. Sub to my channel. Bully Ball podcast that we had on Niners Nation Podcast Network. We took it on over there. Sprint Red Option podcast with Andrew Pasquini, and just a lot more stuff on the way, man. There's so much more to talk about, and I guarantee you guys, this is not the last game for the 49ers. They'll be playing in 2 weeks.
Let's go. Love to hear it. Appreciate all you guys as always. These episodes are always hella fun, and we got some numbers up here today. I think it was one of our most viewed State of the Franchise that we've had so far. So make sure you guys, as always, remember, smash that like button on your way out. You know how me and my crew do. Grab your cookies on the way out. If you stayed start to finish, you deserve a reward. You deserve a treat for staying the whole way. So we thank you as always. And we'll be back next week, Jason. It's going to be a wild one. I'll be in Philly this weekend.
Don't tempt me, Brad. I'm tired of you.
I haven't bought tickets yet. My travel's arranged, but man, these tickets, they're brutal. It's a freaking grip to get into that the link, right? That's what they call it, the link. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to bode well for because let's face it, like everything that I've seen from 49ers fans got bread. They will go and follow this team anywhere. So I don't think that's going to deter 49er fans.
No. They'll go. They'll be there.
So I think they're going to be out and about.
Last year, I went to the NFC title game in SoFi, and the ticket that I bought was on the roof, basically, and it was $800. It was $800. So it set me back a little bit. Well worth the experience. But yeah, man. NFC title games are like that, and obviously you get to stay there, watch your team raise the George Halas trophy, celebrate going to the Super Bowl, things like that. So yeah, it's just bigger stakes, better teams. And that's just, the NFL's the hottest ticket in any town. And that's, obviously the Bengals and Kansas City game isn't going to be as highly priced. But you have to think about the area, East Coast, and the two teams, the San Francisco 49ers and the Eagles. So of course that's going to drive price up.
Yeah, absolutely. When I went in 2019 to the NFC Championship game, 49ers versus Packers, I took my son with me, and I think we spent like $1,200, which I was like, I've never spent anything like this on tickets. $1,200 wouldn't even get me into the lower bowl for this game. So it's for one ticket. So it's up there, man. So, but hey, by any means necessary, we got to keep the good juju rolling. And I got to get to this one. So, I'm going to be heading out, I think on Friday, late Friday, red eye. It's going to be a wild one, but we'll be touching down in Philly. Let me know what the vibes are. I hope to see you down there, but we'll see. I know you're going to be, for sure going to Mobile and then of course to Glendale. So there's a big travel couple weeks here headed up to you.
If Philly would have gave up the credential, I would have been there. No questions asked. But I got stiff armed like Mike McCarthy. So unfortunately, no.
Well, we appreciate all you guys. Remember, sub to both channels. We're going to keep the content rolling. And we, again, appreciate all of you for always tuning in every Wednesday for the State of the Franchise, where Jason and I get together and talk 49ers football. And again, it's not going to be our last time. And hopefully we're talking about a big win next week. Appreciate you all. We're out of here for now. Peace. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now.